We're joined on the phone line now by Michael Calderone, who's a media reporter now for the Washington Post. The Huffington Post. What am I talking about? Huffington Post. Michael, good to have you on. We wanted you to come on to talk about this news story that has developed. And when we've heard all about the AP reporters who had their phone records secretly seized by the Justice Department, but now there is a second reporter who apparently has had his record seized, his emails taken, and even his very movements were tracked by those who were investigating a leak. His name is James Rosen. And Michael, in the spirit of full disclosure, I want to say that James Rosen is a friend of this program, and he is a dear friend of mine. I shared office space with the guy, I don't know, for about eight years or so over at the Fox News channel. Talk to me a little bit about what is happening here and how this new case that's come up is so troubling to those of us who care about journalism.
Right. I mean, in the way that the AP case, really scared a lot of journalists, it was the sweeping nature of the Department of Justice's subpoena, where they went after 20 phone lines, the records for 20 phone lines, and that seemed unprecedented, just the scope of it. What's so shocking about the James Rosen situation is it actually takes that to another level, where the government, in trying to get James Rosen's emails from his personal email account, they basically argued in the search warrant that he was a criminal, that he was a co-conspirator in trying to get classified information out of the government. It's not illegal for journalists to obtain or ask for classified materials. They do it all the time. So this is what's so remarkable about this case, and trying to suggest that what he was doing, asking a source for information, which journalists do every day, is somehow makes you part of a criminal conspiracy. And that's what's gotten a lot of journalists very concerned if the DOJ is going down that path.
So he gets named a criminal simply because he asked for information. They said he either aided or abetted or was a co-conspirator in a crime. That is going to a new level. But they did this in documents designed to get his emails from the Google folks.
Right, and they successfully did it. And another similarity between this and the AP case is, traditionally, for decades, really, the press and government have always had this push and pull about information and about national security interests. There's oftentimes the government will go to news organizations beforehand. In the case of the AP, the Justice Department seized the records and told them on a Friday, we have your records. And in this case as well, the government, seized James Rosen's emails, and Fox News wasn't aware of it until the Washington Post started asking them about it in the last couple of days.
Michael Calderone.
I mean, this is another precedent that they seem to be setting, and kind of not going through that traditional protocol and just getting the records first, and then either notifying or the news organization finds out from another news organization.
Michael Calderone is a senior media reporter at Huffington Post. And Michael, yesterday we saw ABC News reporting that reporters in Cincinnati at the IRS building were escorted by armed security, and it really gave the effect to scare off employees who might talk. That was the effect that ABC News described. We saw Ryan Lizza of the New Yorker decrying this Department of Justice inquiry to James Rosen and Major Garrett also, and Jonathan Karl from ABC News, basically saying that they're criminalizing the behavior of a reporter being a reporter. You observe the media. Are you seeing something happen here with regard to journalists and their relationship with the administration and the Department of Justice?
Well, I mean, I was seeing even before these two incidents, I've talked to national security reporters who are telling me that the crackdown on leaks, and the Obama administration has now prosecuted more people under the Espionage Act than all administrations combined. So there was already a growing fear and a concern about a chilling effect among journalists before the AP and Fox situations. And I would hear from national security reporters who told me it was increasingly difficult to get sources to talk, to get information that presumably is in the public interest about what the government's up to. And now you have this situation where the CEO of the AP suggested on Sunday that it's making that the traditional news gathering at the AP, it's getting more difficult because sources now are very concerned that they're going to get swept up in some sort of seizure, even if they're not leaking classified information. Because as you saw with the AP, it wasn't just while a few reporters were targeted, by pulling the records on 20 phones, that impacted over 100 journalists there. So people who have absolutely nothing to do with this leak case, who are calling a congressman about some story out of the House of Representatives, they could have got swept up in it too. So I think a lot of people are concerned, even if they're not, big, government leakers, they're just worried that their records get pulled in too.
It seems rather elementary to those of us who have spent time in journalism, but maybe it is lost on the public at large. That look, this is sort of the way it was all set up. That the press is given great powers in the First Amendment. And why? Because they're supposed to be another of the checks and balances on government. I mean, the legislative is supposed to check the executive is supposed to check the legislative, and the judicial is supposed to look over all of them, but they give us the unique power to actually look at government as a whole and report what they're doing with the money that we send them. And when we can't talk to people to find out what's going on in government because they are threatened or they fear that they're going to be part of a big probe, then it really does limit our ability to do the jobs that the four founding fathers thought that we should do.
Right, and another problem that's come up in all of this is the overclassification of materials in the government. When the government is stamping everything as classified, and this has been an issue for years, and journalists have, complained about the excessive nature of classification. If everything's classified, then just about anything that's leaked out, the government can say, this is somebody who's leaking classified information, even if it's something sort of mundane. And a lot of documents are classified all the time in the government that really there's no real national security interest. Obviously, news organizations, responsible ones, will listen to the government when they say this could jeopardize national security. And I've written on at least 4 instances over the last 9 months where the AP and the Washington Post and New York Times and others have held back pieces of information at the CIA's request and other agencies. So news organizations are willing to listen, but I think if you stamp everything as classified, then it doesn't make much sense anymore for that sort of system. And journalists will say, well, can you give us a legitimate reason why this can't be in the public? And oftentimes they can't.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Jay Carney, former Time Bureau Chief, responds to additional questions about this today. Michael Calderone with the Huffington Post, media reporter. Listen, really appreciate it. I think it's an important story. I thank you for coming in to be with us today.
Right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.